Hey guys, it's Mr. Savage. Today we're going to be talking about the Bill of Rights. I know we've been talking a lot about the Constitution and about the separation of powers, the three branches. Now we're going to kind of dive into the more popular of the Constitution to talk about. And you guys always hear how people believe in their rights. This is coming from the Bill of Rights itself. So this worksheet that I'm asking you to fill out while I'm talking about this, you'll have 2 days to do because I know this is going to be a longer video. You have 2 days. And with this, it's really just going over the different rights that are promised in the first 10 amendments of the Bill of Rights itself. So it's pretty straightforward. They're in order, so you don't have to go crazy. I'm going to explain them all as we go. So after much debate, the Constitution is in its final stages, kind of what we have it as today. The delegates worked really hard to put together a stronger nation, stronger than it was before, with still strong local governments. And it was sent to the states for approval. Once it got to the states, though, unfortunately, the states were struggling to ratify it within their own state governments. A lot of people were concerned that this Constitution was too powerful. It's giving too many rights to the federal government. And because of this discussion, there became our first two political parties, the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. And we'll get to those in a second. But with these two concerns, the ratification of the Constitution becoming our new government would not happen unless we were able to secure certain rights. The Federalists were in favor of ratification of the Constitution. They thought this was perfect as it was. The Anti-Federalists, they, on the other hand, were afraid that this Constitution will have too much power, and they wanted to protect certain rights. And that's what really they were going for. They're saying, hey, we understand it's a good government, it seems fair, we just want to make sure we have certain rights no matter what. And they had to kind of almost pin that Bill of Rights to the bottom of the Constitution saying, hey, this is what we wanted to do as well. So after all this great discussion, they say, fine, we will add a Bill of Rights. We'll compromise, even though it wasn't a horrible compromise for the Federalists, and the Bill of Rights comes into play. So these first 10 amendments are like the ones that we know as the Bill of Rights. There are many more amendments that they've added through the years, and they have actually taken amendments out as well. They've changed a lot of them. Well, you can see in the textbooks and online that there's a line that goes through like where something's been changed. It happens all the time. But these laws are like the supreme law of the land. These are the ones that nothing supersedes. So the first one, this is where you should start writing stuff down or typing stuff down. First Amendment you've probably heard before. This is a very straightforward one. It guarantees freedom of religion, speech, press, assembly, and petition. These are all different things that we have the right to do no matter what. We have the right to practice any religion. We have the right to speak freely of our mind. Now, obviously, this First Amendment one of speaking freely is debatable. There's discussions to it at all times. I mean, so I wouldn't say to speak freely is like boilerplate. You can say whatever you want, whenever you want. But there's some stipulations to it. We can meet and assemble whenever we want. You can petition the government without fear of reprimands. You can know that you're not going to get in trouble for complaining about the government. You guys know that. We hear it all the time. And finally, the freedom to publish newspapers, TV, radio, and the internet, which obviously you guys have, of course, seen that all over. I mean, this is a big one. The First Amendment's the one that we take very serious. Second one, not as much in New Jersey, but most of the country definitely takes it very serious. Second Amendment protects the rights to bear arms, which means the right to own a gun. Now, the Second Amendment has been under attack for quite some time now. People are arguing that the right to bear arms, first, the Founding Fathers didn't really understand that guns would improve the way they have over the course of the past 300 years. And secondly, they felt more this is supposed to be for state militias rather than individuals. But now, obviously, it's become more of an individual basis, and the right to own a gun is something that Americans love to remind ourselves about. And America is the highest toting gun country in the world. Like, we have more guns than any other country in the world, and this amendment is something that really provides us with that freedom to do so. The Third Amendment. The Third Amendment says no soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in manner to be prescribed by law. Now, this means that we cannot force soldiers to house or in our houses. We cannot force people to have soldiers in the house. This should sound like the Quartering Act. This is literally just a saying pretty much arguing against the Quartering Act. They hated it so much, they're saying, look, we will never do that. That's like, it's that important, they added it as the third thing in line. They promised we'll never have the Quartering Act. The Fourth Amendment. This is actually an interesting one. You probably see this before in like crime shows. The Fourth Amendment protects against the people from unreasonable search and seizures. That means that the police have to have a warrant to enter homes. It means that they can't just like kick the door down and walk in. Also, it means that if the government is searching your home, they can't take your property without like reason or warrant. They can't just like walk in and take your TV and say they need it for police business. They have to have reasoning behind it. They cannot just take things for you or from you. And getting a warrant isn't as easy as it seems. I mean, there has to be reasonable cause for the police to come take your items. Again, it's a pretty straightforward one. This one is obviously used in court quite often now. This is a good little example of like what the Fourth Amendment like protects you from. The officer is here saying that he has an informant that has drugs at this person's house. The judge is saying, okay, that's probable cause. Here's your search warrant to go to that house and collect what you believe is being done illegally. Fifth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment protects people from being held for committing a crime unless they are properly accused of it. You may not be tried twice for the same crime, and you don't have to testify against yourself in court. These are three major things that obviously I hope that you guys never encounter yourselves, but you've probably heard of these before. The Fifth Amendment really covers the idea of like if you are accused of a crime, you have a fair trial. This is where the fair trial stuff comes into place. You have to know what you're being accused of. Like the police will tell you like you're being accused of this, this, and this. They will tell you your rights. You've probably heard of the Miranda rights before as well. If you're going to court for a crime, let's say robbing a bank, and they say you're innocent for that crime, you cannot be tried again for that crime if new evidence comes up. Let's say like evidence comes up after you're declared innocent, you're walking around on the street free, the police can't arrest you for that crime again. Now, if you rob a bank a second time, that's different, and they can use the evidence from the first time to get you for the second time probably. And last, you don't have to testify against yourself in court. That's called self-incrimination. People actually usually say like, I plead the fifth. It's the idea that if you're in court and like you said, they ask you a question of, like, were you ever at that bank? You can say, I plead the fifth, because that could be a question leading down to, did you rob that bank? It's the idea you don't have to answer every question, and the Fifth Amendment protects you from answering questions that could look bad against you. Sixth Amendment, I'm just going to put it all out there so you can read it now. Guarantees a speedy trial. You can't be kept in jail for over a year without a trial. Also, you get an impartial jury. You've probably heard of like a jury before. A jury is just a jury of citizens that are impartial, which means they don't think you're necessarily guilty. And it's the idea that these jurors will decide through evidence and argument why you're innocent or guilty. And then you could also have the right to confront witnesses, as in you can like ask witnesses what they saw. And then you have the right to a lawyer as well. Again, you've probably heard that in the Miranda rights as well. You have a right to a lawyer if you can't afford one. Like the government will actually give you one like to defend you. So it's fair. Like we all have our lawyers and we all have our time in court. Like that's something that's guaranteed under the Fifth and Sixth Amendment. Seventh Amendment. This is an interesting one. This is the right to a speedy civil trial. Civil trial is a little bit different. Civil trial is a trial between two individuals. So a good way to think about civil trial is like Judge Judy. It's the idea that there's a judge that will preside over it, and sometimes it depends on the civil trials. There also could be a jury as well, but the judge will preside over this trial and pretty much decide who is innocent or who is guilty or who is right and wrong in the situation. It just gives us another level of protection, and it explains the difference between the government in a criminal trial, the government with a person, and the civil trial between two different people. It's just promising that you have your time to convict someone else of a crime they might have done to you, but it may not be a crime in the eyes of the law, let's say. The Eighth Amendment, you've probably heard of this one as well. This is guaranteeing that we do not have cruel and unusual punishment, and that the fines will not be extraordinarily large. Let's say if you were caught jaywalking, you're not going to be put in jail for 25 years. You're not going to be fined $2 million. pretty much is a stipulation of the punishment that fits the crime. And obviously, we have argued this many, many times over many different ways of what exactly is cruel punishment. The idea of like this chair, for example, like this is an electric chair. Is that cruel and unusual punishment? Like, is that, even though you're trying to kill this person, could it be like, is it painful? Is that cruel? Is there a way we could, do the death penalty that is not cruel? And that's the kind of argument that they have for a lot of these different crimes and punishments as well. That what exactly fits the crime? If you rob a bank, do you go to jail for 5 years? Do you go to jail for 20 years? Like, where's the line that you have to draw in the sand? But the Eighth Amendment protects you from that, and it protects you from like being set as an example. Just because the judge doesn't like you, or he's having a bad day, or he woke up on the wrong side of the bed, doesn't mean that you're going to get in trouble because of like how he's feeling. It's across the board fair, so we all feel like we're equally treated. 9 and 10 are kind of weird ones. Number 9 is pretty much saying all rights not stated in the Constitution belongs to the people. That means that the states can do what they want if the Constitution doesn't forbid it. That's why there's like weird laws about, let's say, like gambling, for example. There's very few states that allow gambling. That wasn't provided in the Constitution. That wasn't provided under federal law. So states decide if they want to be able to let people gamble. It's just something that says, like, look, it's not all federal decision. The states do have some power. And number 10 is saying any power not granted to the federal government belongs to the state or to the people. That kind of goes, same idea as number 9. It's just saying that if the federal government can't do it, the states can't do it, then the people can do it. And that goes down to like a city-by-city decision. It goes down to like a state-by-state and municipality decision instead, which is pretty straightforward. It's just kind of saying if the federal government can't do it, state government can't do it, then you have the power to do it yourself. That's all it's really saying. So yeah, this is pretty straightforward, I think. These are the 10 different amendments. What I'd like you to be able to do is, if you have to go through these questions again, please feel free to do so. You have these 10 questions, and then under it you have the checks and balances. There's a flow chart under it that'll help you out. What I'd like you to do is do the checks and balances down here, and then have this whole box filled out along with all these questions done. I think questions you should be done with for the most part. If you need the PowerPoint, I'll put it up on Classroom as well, but I would rather you watch this, of course. If you need anything, please let me know. Obviously, I've been talking to you guys a ton on Google Classroom. Yeah, that's about it. Let me know if you need anything. All right, have a good day.